I remember cresting my favorite local trail, ready for the steep descent, when my foot completely slipped off a cheap plastic pedal. I slammed my shin so hard I saw stars and had to walk the bike down the mountain. Finding pedals that actually grip without costing an absolute fortune is a nightmare with so many options flooding the market today. That's why I bought and brutally tested the most popular options out there. Today, we're counting down the 7 best mountain bike pedals, and wait until you see why my number 1 pick changed how I ride forever. 7. Hapleby Premium Bike Pedals. When I first ordered the Hapleby Premium Bike Pedals, I was intrigued by the promise of a professional-grade mountain bike experience at a budget-friendly price point. Pulling them out of the box, the aluminum alloy body certainly looked the part, presenting a sleek, angular design that mimics much more expensive brands. I immediately tossed them onto my trail bike, noting that the installation was straightforward with standard threading. Spinning them on the crank arm, I could feel that they were relatively lightweight, which is always a bonus when you are trying to keep your overall bike weight manageable for those grueling uphill climbs. However, taking them out onto the dirt quickly revealed where corners were cut to keep the price down. During my first technical climb, I noticed that the platform felt somewhat cramped under my size 11 shoes. The surface area just wasn't quite broad enough to disperse the pressure evenly, leading to some hot spots on the soles of my feet after about an hour of riding. As I transitioned into a downhill section with mild chatter and root webs, the grip became a glaring issue. The traction pins on these pedals are incredibly smooth and lack the sharp bite required to lock a dedicated mountain bike shoe in place. Things only got worse when the trail conditions turned slightly damp. The moment a little bit of mud and water got onto the aluminum platform, the Hapleby pedals became downright slippery. I found myself hyper-focusing on keeping my heels dropped and my weight perfectly centered, simply because I didn't trust the pedals to hold my feet if I hit a drop or a fast corner. 6. GPMTER Bike Pedals 9/16 for MTB. Moving on to the GPMTER bike pedals, I wanted to see if a different style of budget pedal could solve the issues I had with the Haplebys. These are constructed from a nylon composite material rather than aluminum, which is a trend that has become incredibly popular in the mountain biking world due to its durability and weight savings. Out of the packaging, the wide platform looked much more promising for my larger feet, and the composite material felt rugged enough to withstand a few good rock strikes. I threaded them on, grabbed my helmet, and headed to a local jump trail to see how they handled impact and airtime. The initial ride feel was definitely an improvement in terms of foot support. The wider body allowed my shoe to sit much more naturally, completely eliminating the hot spots I had previously experienced. The platform has a very slight concavity to it, which theoretically helps your foot settle into the center of the pedal. During smooth, flowy sections of the trail, they performed adequately, and I appreciated how the nylon composite body glided over rocks instead of violently catching and hanging up the way aluminum sometimes does. But once I started hitting larger jumps and landing with heavy force, the fatal flaw of the GPMTER pedals revealed itself. Instead of featuring threaded metal traction pins, these pedals rely on thick, molded plastic nubs integrated directly into the composite body. While this might save your shins from getting entirely shredded during a slip, it provides absolutely terrible traction. Wearing proper flat pedal shoes with sticky rubber, I expected to feel locked in, but my feet were constantly micro-shifting upon landing. 5. Topcrown Mountain Bike Pedals. They feature a robust aluminum body with a very open, skeletonized design that immediately tells me they are built to shed mud efficiently. They also came equipped with reflectors, which initially made me skeptical about their hardcore mountain bike credentials, but I decided to reserve judgment until they saw some dirt. The installation was seamless, and the spindle felt solidly machined, giving me hope that they could withstand a proper beating in the mountains. Hitting the trails, the difference in traction was immediately apparent and highly welcomed. Topcrown utilized actual metal pins on these pedals, and they bite into the rubber of a riding shoe with a satisfying grip. I took them down a steep, rocky chute that requires heavy braking and precise body positioning, and my feet stayed exactly where I planted them. The platform size is generous, offering a stable base that allowed me to drive my weight through the bottom bracket during tight cornering. For the first time in this testing process, I wasn't actively thinking about my feet slipping off. One of the standout features I noticed during a particularly messy, post-rain ride was how well these pedals clear debris. Because of the large cutouts in the aluminum body, thick mud simply pushes right through the pedal rather than packing up underneath my shoe. This meant that even after hiking my bike through a swampy section, I could hop back on and immediately find traction without having to aggressively kick my pedals clean. The reflectors, while arguably unnecessary for daytime trail riding, actually proved useful when my ride went a bit long and I had to pedal back along a dark paved road to reach my truck. However, they aren't entirely perfect. 4. BUCKLOS MTB bike flat pedals. These pedals look mean, featuring a heavily machined aluminum body that boasts a massive surface area. Bolting them on, I was struck by how incredibly wide they are, extending further out from the crank arm than anything else I had tested so far. This ultra-wide stance is specifically designed to accommodate riders with larger feet or those who prefer a wider stance for increased stability on downhill bombing runs. I was eager to see if bigger truly meant better on the mountain. Taking them out on a high-speed, like park-style trail, the stability these pedals offer is nothing short of fantastic. The sheer amount of real estate underfoot means that even if you replace your foot slightly off-center after dabbing around a tight switchback, you still have plenty of pedal under your shoe to maintain control. I found myself carrying much more speed through high G berms because the wide platform allowed me to aggressively push the bike down into the dirt without feeling like my foot was going to roll over the outside edge of the pedal. The pin layout on the BUCKLOS pedals is also highly commendable. They feature numerous replaceable metal pins that are distributed perfectly across the perimeter and center of the platform. The grip is tenacious, locking my 5'10" shoes in with a vice-like hold. I tested them on a heavily rooted, off-camber section where the bike is constantly trying to bounce sideways, and my feet remain totally glued in place. The confidence inspired by this level of traction cannot be overstated. It fundamentally changes how aggressive you are willing to be on the bike. 3. 50/50 mountain bike pedals. These have garnered a massive cult following in the mountain bike community, and after putting them through the ringer, I completely understand why. These return to the nylon composite material, but they execute it flawlessly. Out of the box, they are shockingly lightweight and feature an incredibly slim profile. I bolted them onto my Enduro rig, instantly appreciating how the low-profile design theoretically lowers your center of gravity and increases ground clearance. The aesthetic is clean, modern, and looks right at home on a high-end bicycle. On the trail, the 50/50 pedals deliver a masterclass in grip and feel. They utilize perfectly machined, replaceable steel traction pins that are incredibly sharp. The moment I placed my foot on the pedal, it felt like my shoe was physically bolted to the crank arm. The platform is generously sized, but what truly sets it apart is the subtle concave shape. This concavity allows the ball of your foot to sink slightly into the center of the pedal, while the pins on the edges bite into the rubber. This creates a cradle-like effect that provides unmatched security when launching off drops or blazing through brutal rock gardens. I specifically took these out in the worst conditions imaginable: freezing rain, slick clay, and wet limestone. While other pedals would have turned into ice skates, the 50/50s maintained a ridiculous level of traction. The composite material also proved its superiority in these chunky environments. When I did inevitably strike a rock, the nylon body smoothly glanced off the obstacle instead of jarring the bike to a halt, which is a common issue with sticky aluminum pedals. It's a subtle difference, but it saves your momentum and keeps you flowing down the trail. 2. OneUp Components Composite Pedals. OneUp is a legendary brand in the mountain biking space, known for engineering parts that solve real-world rider problems. Installing these on my bike felt like an instant upgrade. The standout feature here is the massive, ultra-thin platform. OneUp has managed to create a composite pedal that is astonishingly thin at its edges, which dramatically improves ground clearance. As someone who rides incredibly technical, rocky terrain where pedal strikes are a constant threat, this low-profile design was a massive selling point for me. The ride feel of the OneUp pedals is entirely unique due to their convex shape. Unlike the concave cradle of the 50/50s, the OneUp pedals are slightly thicker in the middle over the axle. Initially, I was highly skeptical of this, assuming my foot would rock back and forth. However, once on the trail, the genius of the design became apparent. The convex shape perfectly matches the natural arch of your foot, and combined with their aggressively long threaded steel pins, it results in an incredibly locked-in, comfortable ride. I felt less foot fatigue on long, multi-hour descents than I have with almost any other pedal. Traction is simply phenomenal. The pins are so long and sharp that they bury themselves deep into the sole of your shoe. I took these down a double black diamond downhill track filled with massive braking bumps and high-speed chatter that normally vibrates your feet right off the pedals. The OneUps kept my feet utterly planted, allowing me to stay off the brakes and let the suspension do its work. 1. Crankbrothers Stamp Flat MTB Pedals. These are the pedals that completely resolved the open loop from a disastrous crash years ago. What makes the Stamp pedals revolutionary is that Crankbrothers treats pedals like shoes. They offer them in different sizes. I tested the large size, specifically engineered for riders with size 10 to 15 shoes. Pulling these premium aluminum masterpieces out of the box, the build quality is breathtaking. The forged CM 435 chromoly steel spindle and perfectly machined body scream high-performance engineering. The moment I dropped into my first trail with the Stamps, my riding was permanently elevated. Because the pedal size is perfectly optimized for the exact footprint of my shoe, the power transfer and stability are flawless. The pedal features a beautifully designed concave profile, thinner in the center and thicker at the edges, which creates a massive sweet spot. 10 adjustable traction pins per side allow you to completely customize the level of grip. I set mine slightly longer on the outside edges, creating a customized pocket that held my 510 shoes with a grip so secure it honestly rivaled being clicked in. I pushed these pedals to the absolute limit on the most chaotic, terrifying downhill runs I could find. Through violent rock gardens, massive drops to flat, and high-speed off-camber routes, my feet never shifted a single millimeter. The absolute confidence this gives you changes your entire psychological approach to riding. You stop worrying about your feet and start looking further down the trail, attacking obstacles rather than surviving them. Despite having a massive surface area, the incredibly thin 11 to 13 millimeters profile meant my pedal strikes were reduced to almost zero, allowing me to pedal through deep ruts without hesitation.